Section 24,220 of the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act is already federal law. It requires every new vehicle sold in America starting in 2026 to include technology that can passively monitor your driving behavior and to prevent vehicle operation if an algorithm decides intervention is warranted. No human review is written into the law. The recreational vehicle you buy after this mandate takes effect is a fundamentally different object than the one you could buy the day before it. What the law actually requires, starting with the exact text. Let's start with the actual legal text because this is not speculation or extrapolation from a patent filing. Section 24,220 of the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, signed into law in November 2021, mandates that every new vehicle must include advanced impaired driving prevention technology capable of passively monitoring driver performance and preventing or limiting vehicle operation if impairment is detected. 3 phrases in that statute carry the entire weight of what is changing. Passively monitor, prevent operation, detected by an algorithm. Those 3 phrases appear in the same federal law with no mandated appeals process, no reset timeline, and no requirement for human review before the system acts. Representative Thomas Massey introduced a motion to defund the implementation of this provision in January 2025. He lost by more than 100 votes. Every representative who voted to maintain the mandate is on the record by name for their district. That vote margin tells you something important about how seriously the people making these decisions are treating the objection. The law is not pending. It is not proposed. It is not under review. It is signed, funded, and being implemented on a timeline, and the 2026 model year represents the first major checkpoint. The RV industry is not exempt from the passenger vehicle definition in the statute. What this means for the Class A motorhome, the fifth-wheel tow vehicle, and the travel trailer tow truck you are considering buying is the subject of the rest of this video. How the monitoring architecture works inside a 2026 recreational vehicle setup. To comply with the mandate, manufacturers are installing driver-facing cameras in dashboards and steering column assemblies. These cameras track eye movement, head position, and blink rate. Steering wheel sensors monitor grip pressure and input patterns. An algorithm running continuously classifies whether the system determines the driver is fit to operate the vehicle. If the algorithm concludes impairment, distraction, or fatigue, based on its interpretation of camera and sensor data, it has the statutory authority to reduce engine power, bring the vehicle to a controlled stop, or prevent the engine from starting. For the recreational vehicle owner, the monitoring architecture creates specific failure scenarios that do not exist in the pre-mandate vehicle. A Class A motorhome driver wearing polarized sunglasses on a bright afternoon generates different eye reflection data than the algorithm's baseline calibration expects. A fifth-wheel driver whose camera lens collects road dust on a gravel campground approach registers differently than a clean lens urban driving profile. A travel trailer tower who checks mirrors more frequently than the algorithm's normative model because they are managing a 14,000-pound trailer behind them generates a head movement pattern the system may classify as distraction. The algorithm does not know you have a trailer. It knows what the camera sees. What the camera sees on a recreational vehicle trip is frequently different from the controlled conditions under which the system was calibrated. And there is no human review written into the law that can override what the algorithm decides before it acts. The data the system generates and who it gets sold. To the monitoring system required by the mandate does not simply act on impairment detection and then forget what it saw. Every trip the system logs, every eye movement pattern, every behavioral classification, every intervention event, whether triggered or not, is transmitted through the vehicle's cellular connection to a manufacturer's server. General Motors has already faced class action litigation for selling OnStar telemetry data, including individual driving behavior records, to data brokers including LexisNexis and Verisk. Those companies compiled individual records into risk scores and sold those scores to insurance carriers. Policyholders received premium increases without having committed any traffic violation. The vehicle generated the data. The manufacturer sold it. The insurance company used it. The owner had no meaningful knowledge that any of this was happening. The monitoring architecture required by Section 24220 generates substantially more detailed behavioral data than the pre-mandate telemetry that produced those documented data sales. Every classification the algorithm makes about your driving state is a data point. Every near intervention, where the system flagged a behavior but did not act, is a data point. The infrastructure bill provision that mandated the system for impaired driving prevention created the technical architecture. What gets transmitted from that architecture, to whom, and for what commercial purposes is governed by privacy policies that run to thousands of words at a reading level that requires legal training to interpret. The RV owner who finances a 2026 motorhome under the assumption that the monitoring system exists only to prevent drunk driving is agreeing to something considerably more expansive than that assumption captures. The software obsolescence layer. Nobody is talking about. There is a dimension of the 2026 mandate that goes beyond the monitoring camera itself, and that almost no buyer is calculating before they sign. A vehicle built around a federally required software system is a vehicle whose long-term functionality depends entirely on the manufacturer continuing to support that software stack. Tesla demonstrated this dynamic when it remotely reduced battery capacity through over-the-air updates on vehicles that owners purchased under the assumption that the range they bought was the range they owned. Other manufacturers observed the limited consumer response and are building equivalent capability into their own platforms. A 2026 RV or tow vehicle may be in mechanically sound condition 10 years from now. If the manufacturer has stopped supporting the monitoring system software platform by then, features begin failing without any mechanical cause, not because of wear, but because of deliberate discontinuation. Navigation systems go dark. Safety integrations disable themselves. Climate controls routed through software behave unpredictably. The manufacturer's suggested resolution is either an expensive dealer visit or trading the unit in for something newer with current software support. That second option is the intended outcome. The pre-2026 RV does not carry this dependency. Its functionality is mechanical. It does not require a manufacturer's ongoing permission to operate the features you paid for. Why pre-2026 RVs and tow vehicles represent a different category of ownership. A well-maintained RV or tow vehicle from before the 2026 model year represents something that vehicles sold after the mandate fundamentally cannot offer. It is the ability to own, operate, and repair the vehicle entirely on your own terms, with direct control. This is not nostalgia. It is a structural distinction with measurable financial and practical consequences across a full ownership lifecycle. A pre-2026 Class A motorhome does not contain the driver-facing monitoring camera. It does not transmit your behavioral data to a manufacturer server. It does not require a software layer's permission to start the engine. When you turn the key, the relationship between you and the vehicle is mechanical and direct. Vehicles from before the connected architecture mandate are already holding their value differently in certain market segments. Buyers who understand what is coming are treating pre-2026 ownership as a categorically different proposition. A well-maintained 2022 or 2023 RV purchased today is not simply a cheaper version of a 2026 model. It is an object with a different ownership structure, one that does not include algorithm-managed operation authority, does not generate a continuous behavioral data stream, and can be fully serviced by any competent independent mechanic without manufacturer software access. That structural difference has a market value that is beginning to be reflected in pricing. The buyers who are recognizing it now are the ones paying the pre-recognition price. The right to repair dimension, why your future service options are narrowing. The monitoring mandate does not exist in isolation from the broader direction of vehicle technology access. Modern vehicles already require manufacturer-specific diagnostic software to perform repairs that a capable independent mechanic could complete in 20 minutes on a vehicle built before 2000. Manufacturers are actively restricting access to those tools. Right-to-repair legislation has been introduced across multiple states, but automotive lobbying groups have successfully watered down or blocked most of those bills. A 2024 survey by the Auto Care Association found that over 50% of independent repair shops already report turning away business because they cannot access vehicle computers due to proprietary technology restrictions. The 2026 mandate accelerates this trajectory. A vehicle with a federally mandated monitoring system has a manufacturer with a legal and commercial interest in maintaining control over that system's calibration, updates, and diagnostic access. The independent mechanic who cannot access the monitoring system's diagnostic interface cannot certify that it is functioning correctly after a repair. That dependency creates a service funnel toward dealerships charging 2 to 3 times the rates of independent shops for identical mechanical work. The pre-2026 RV or tow vehicle that your independent mechanic can fully service without manufacturer software access is not just a vehicle without a monitoring camera. It is a vehicle with a fundamentally different service cost trajectory over a 10 to 15-year ownership period. What the smart buyers are actually doing right now. The practical response to the monitoring mandate does not require political action or technical expertise. It requires a purchasing decision made before the inventory of pre-mandate vehicles thins further than it already has. Buying an RV or tow truck before the 2026 model year gives you a window of traditional ownership that closes permanently with each model year that passes. Vehicles made before 2020, particularly trucks and larger motorhome platforms with strong parts availability, represent the last generation that a capable independent mechanic can service without manufacturer software access. The skills and the parts ecosystem to keep those vehicles running are becoming more valuable as the gap between what they represent and what the 2026 mandate creates becomes apparent to more buyers. When evaluating a vehicle made before 2026 for purchase, the standards that have always applied to used RV buying apply with greater weight now. A certified NRVII. A pre-purchase inspection on any unit you are serious about is not optional due diligence. It is the filter that separates a sound pre-mandate asset from a pre-mandate problem unit that was poorly maintained by someone who did not understand what they owned. The inspection costs $300 to $500. The alternative is inheriting someone else's deferred maintenance on a vehicle whose ownership structure you are buying specifically because it is different from what comes next. That difference is only worth what the specific unit is actually worth. Verify it before you commit. Outro section, 24,220 is federal law. The vote to keep it funded happened in January 2025 by a margin of more than 100 votes. The 2026 implementation deadline is not a future concern. It is the present boundary between two categorically different ownership propositions. The RV and tow vehicle you buy before that boundary is an object you own in the historical sense of the word. The one you buy after it contains a government-mandated monitoring system with no human review requirement. It generates a behavioral data stream with documented commercial applications you did not consent to in any meaningful sense, and it requires manufacturer software access for service that independent mechanics are being systematically locked out of. That distinction is not a political position. It is a description of what the law requires and what the market is already beginning to price. If this changed how you are thinking about your next RV or tow vehicle purchase, subscribe to this channel. We publish one forensic audit per week, examining the legislation, engineering decisions, and ownership structures that the RV and vehicle industry counts on buyers accepting without reading the fine print. The next investigation is already running. Do not miss it.